Hey everybody, this is producer Eric. So, Karine wanted me to let you guys know something. Before you take any of the advice she offers on the show, please speak to your medical doctor. Also, when you do take Karine's advice, please understand that results will vary per person. Alright, let's start the show.
Welcome to Shit Isn't a Dirty Word, a not so ordinary podcast with your lovely host, Karine Namani. Hi, Karine.
Hi, love. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Sunny California is hot.
It's beautiful, right? It's
and
beautiful.
The kids are going back to school soon, so
yeah. Enjoy the last days of summer, and then the schedule comes with the kids. So yeah, that's good. And you know who doesn't have kids, but he's all the way in New Jersey? Eric Kasloff. What's up, Eric?
Good. So you mentioned me not having kids, which is like a really touchy subject for me, man. Thank you.
But
I'm gonna go grab my bottle of Jack Daniels now.
But you have Rogers. He's like a kid that will never grow up.
Let's just get to the guest.
He will never, Rogers will never grow up. You'll get to walk him until he's, yeah,
man. Thanks, Larry. Great start to the show, man.
Well, Karine, we have, so our guest today, and we had met Jason Boyce on our Something podcast. He wrote a book called Chronic Fatigue Gone. And obviously it's about his chronic fatigue that he's lived with for more than several years. But we thought, Eric and I thought it would be an amazing show to be able to have Jason talk to you about all the research and stuff that he's found with the naturopathic stuff and the homeopathic things. And so, Jason, welcome to Karine's podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. Again, that's very nice of you.
Thanks for coming back.
Yes, absolutely. And Jason, tell us a little bit about obviously your book, but what talk to us about your chronic fatigue and some of the things that you've researched. And then we can kind of get into this.
Yeah, well, I mean, chronic fatigue syndrome, also known as ME, myalgic encephalomyelitis, is a long-term disease. For me, it's lasted getting on for 20 years now, and it's a spectrum disease. So in some people, it lasts for a few years. Some people, it's a lifetime. Some people, it's debilitating to the point where they can't get out of bed, and they have to stay in bed for weeks, months, years. And for some people, like me, I'm kind of a functioning ME sufferer, which means that I can walk, talk, and go about my daily routine within limits. So I can't do too much in a day or have what we call an energy crash, which is simply that, the point where you have zero energy to the point where you really can't walk or talk much, which is extremely debilitating in terms of quality of life, trying to work, hold down a job, etc. And because the medical community, for want of a better word, let me down and let millions of people like me down, that they couldn't help me, my only avenue to get better was to figure it out all by myself and to do a ton of research to try and get myself better. And I figured out a myriad of ways that, when combined, can sort of help me live a relatively normal life. And the reason for writing the book was that I collated all this information and decided that I wanted to get that information out there, to share that information, to help other people, to hopefully, do what I've done, which is to learn, take on board the therapies, use the therapies, and to use those therapies to help live, as I said, a relatively normal life. And I say relatively in that, I'm still not running marathons, but I can take the dog for a walk every day. I can play golf. I say can play in a loose term that I spray the ball everywhere, but that's a different story. but yeah, so you know, I thought it was a valuable resource for other people to piggyback off what I've learned. That doesn't mean I don't say that I'm an expert in chronic illnesses or, you know, genetic diseases or even COVID, although I've learned a lot about COVID, and I've discussed how these therapies can also help people with long COVID, which I've discussed in the book in you know, reasonable detail. But I'm not an expert, and anybody who follows my advice or reads the book should also consult their doctor. That's a caveat and a disclaimer, because, you know, obviously I'm not medically trained and I don't want to imply that I am.
Yeah.
But suffice to say that the information that I've garnered over the years should be and will be helpful to other people, and there's no reason for me to keep that information to myself.
I'm
And
so
that's
happy you
purpose.
mentioned all that. I mean, I'm very sorry you had to pass through all that pain to figure it out by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But a big part of my life is actually dealing with the exact thing that you're dealing with. Maybe not just chronic fatigue, but more the ways that I couldn't find helpful with medical doctor. And I must say, I would never say, even about chronic, it's not going to save a person from its disease. Maybe it's not going to even solve the problem, but it will solve a root. And whatever goods for you and whatever you find out that works for you, it's your experience. And if you can, you know, give your experience to others, and even one person in this entire world can get one good thing out of your suggestion, you did good, first of all.
Yeah.
And as we all know, there is no one diet for all. I know people think that it is that way, and there is one medication for all, one medication for this, one weight loss for all. It doesn't happen that way, because and I repeatedly say that almost in every podcast I have, we are different people that live different life, that probably your chronic fatigue happened because of 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's not going to happen to someone with 5, 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you experience and the way you give a lot of option, that a person with a good brain will choose something that will work for him. And as you mentioned, you're not a doctor, but you're, in at least in my opinion, better than a doctor, because there is not better than experience. There is no such a thing as your experience on yourself. You can document on how you feel, what you do, what's the roots. You can actually write your journal about how your day look like. And the problem with doctors, and I love doctors and they're amazing at what they do, and there is a lot of good doctors, obviously,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that saving life every day, and we should hooray for them, and they're just amazing, and we shouldn't give up on them in any way. But doctor is not God. You know, and not everything that doctors say is correct, and the opposite. So my suggestion to all the audience is, first of all, never just like lock yourself on one path. Always open up to hear different advice and take only what works for you. So when you say, and you wrote a book with a lot of research, it's because you suffer. So if you suffer, you've seen that something didn't work with your life, and you need to go back to the roots and see what caused what, and obviously treat it. And I'm sure you treat it in the emotional level, physical level, I mean, with every level. And we're laughing when we're saying like, oh, I'm not running a marathon. Let me tell you, changing someone's quality of life is a jackpot. When people ask me about what I do, and I'm saying like, well, I'm not going to save my client from cancer, but I can give them a better quality of life during this chemo. People don't understand that for the average person to go to the restroom is something regular, right? It's like we go, we eat, we drink. For people that go through chemo and going through a lot of constipation, going to the restroom, sometimes it's impossible. And it's a very small thing. And if you can see a smile on someone's face when you actually go, and it's a relief, we did it. And that's what Jason was pretty much kind of talking about. It's like that fatigue that doesn't let you do any ordinary stuff like to write or to walk with your dog. It, for our brain, is something simple. But when someone struggles with that, that's not simple. So every small effect or any small like positive to your life, and now you can actually walk with your dog, yeah, that's like, wow, that's a jackpot there. And sharing that experience with others, I think it's blessed, it's amazing. That's what we're supposed to do. Because I mean, I have to share it with you, Jason. My husband diagnosed with cancer, and I'm going through what you're going through with doctors, and I'm fighting with doctor on a regular basis, and it's fine. I mean, we're doing it with love and laugh, but, and I'm sure we're gonna get there. I'm sure you tried probably the hyperbaric chamber for chronic fatigue.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is amazing. Okay. It's insane. It's amazing. It's amazing for any fatigue, chronic fatigue, for especially after COVID, long-term COVID. It's one of the best treatment there is. And when I came to my physician, my husband, oncologist, he was laughing at me and he was like, I don't recommend, I don't do that. I'm like, you know what? I didn't ask for your opinion. I just telling you what I'm going to do. And it's like the interactive, I'm like, I'm not fighting with you. I want my husband to get the best of the best. Like, he heard me talking about colonics with my husband and he got mad. I'm like, what is your problem? I'm talking to my husband in the room. Like, what you gonna tell him not to do it? I'm not asking you what to do. And, you know, and it's amazing because last week we did PET scan. And in terms of everything we did, it's 100% that there is no leakage anywhere. And the doctor was kind of surprised and he's like, yes, so the chemo is working. I'm like, look, we both want the same thing. So I don't care what works for him or what's not. I'm living with him. I'm taking care of him. I'm doing everything possible. So when we get to the finish line, I honestly don't care what helped him, as long as you're good. So your experience, Jason, that's what keep us going to the, you know, to the finish line. It's your expertise on your body alone. And as an audience or as someone that have some chronic fatigue, I will take some of your advice, try it on me, and obviously take what works for me. And that's the idea of this whole thing, is sharing what worked on you. And we have that brain that's supposed to tell us, okay, take what works for us. Obviously, there is no such a thing as magic. And you need the willing and you need extra, you need a lot of other stuff. But the main thing is that you need to be open to even try something else, to open to other things.
Open the mind, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mind and body. And we always talk about mind, body, and physical. That goes together. There is no such a thing, only one thing, you know? And I'm going to tell something funny because my husband was like, but the doctor know what he's saying. And I'm like, listen, the doctor never tried chemo on him. How can he possibly tell you how to feel? And he looks at me, he's like, when I'm telling you to do colonics, is because I know every step of the way what you should feel, obviously. When he give you chemo, he have no clue how you should feel. He just read behind that thing and tell you, oh, you're probably gonna have this one, that one, your fever, this. I'm like, what are you talking about? When he's gonna try it on him, I'm gonna listen to him. As long as he didn't, you are another person in experiment. And that's the whole thing is we are rabbits. In a way.
It's true.
Jason, what type of chronic fatigue you had? Like something specific, or like, as the doctors say, general fibromyalgia, when they don't find
it's
they just fibromyalgia. It's like,
I mean, I had hundreds of tests. We ruled out Lyme disease, which is a common one. I don't have fibromyalgia, thankfully. So it's basically, it's crushing fatigue. It's usually post-exercise. So it's post-exertional malaise, PEM, post-exertional malaise. So the more I exercise or more energy I expend, it's like a battery, you know, if I take my battery just too low, I can't then top it back up again. You know, it's the ATP recycle, the Krebs cycle issue that I can't, a lot of people in my position just can't recycle the ATP fast enough. So it takes about 2 weeks to get back up to full energy levels. Actually, while you're here, I wanted to discuss with you the gut microbiome and its effect on chronic fatigue syndrome. That's something you must have experience with. And specifically in my case, and I think in the case of millions of other people, that sugar, the ingestion of sugar, seems to cause enormous energy crash, probably causing candida, yeast overgrowth issues, which leads to like leaky gut and then autoimmune issues, chronic inflammation. And I just wonder what your thoughts are.
Laughing there because he knows those terms recently, because we're actually writing a blog along the way with podcast and everything. And it's something I repeat, I think 100 times a day, also with my kids, just so you know. I have 4 kids and we always have that thing with sugar. Listen, in my household, we took sugar out. We use only, you know, good sugar, like raspberries, berries, fruit sugar, natural sugar. Of course, if my kids want some cookies or Oreo, I'm not going to say no. But for the most part, there is no refined sugar. Now, sugar, and also, actually, this is the last research that happened, that all the diet thing are elevating more sugar in your system than regular sugar and causing the energy to drop down and causing a lot of internal problem. So my suggestion to everybody is, first of all, to stop taking all that non-diet thingy, sugar, aspartame,
like the sweet and
stevia.
low,
It's bad. If you want to have some good sugar, maple syrup will do it, or real honey will do it. But we can live without that sugar. But another thing is a lot of things from gluten, a lot of rice, pasta. At the end, they become sugar. So we have to choose good ones. Yes. I see him like, you took the pasta as well. No, you can have, I'm just saying, like, you can have those food, but elimination is really important, because there is a lot of inflammation. So we have to choose the food that cause a lot of inflammation. As I'm sure, Jason, you experienced when you took those things out, your energy went up a lot. When you put good food in your body, and I don't mean salad, because salad can be good, but on some people it's just not good. a lot of
Mhm.
fibers, a lot of good cooked vegetable. Raw vegetables are not the best for, I mean, they're good, but they're not the best. It also depends on what raw vegetable you want to eat, because we have to think about the end of it, the digestion part of it. So it can be really healthy, but we can digest like kale. I hate kale. Like, it's one of the worst thing ever. But in Hollywood, it got to a place of like a brand thing, like the new hit. It was 7 years ago.
Mhm.
Major no. Kale is not digestible, and it causes a lot of gas. And because there is a lot of gas, it causes a lot of fatigue, and especially with people that suffer from that, they should stay away from it. Same way,
Okay.
I mean, people with fatigue should stay away from a lot of gassy vegetables. So I know it become very popular to go to a restaurant and have cauliflower and Brussels sprout because it's very healthy. Amazing, but they are very gassy too. So make your, like, do your calculation of when you want to eat it. The same with chickpeas and hummus. They're good, but you know, you don't have to do a lot of gassy thing. To answer your question, candida is one of the most common thing in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody have candida. Again, I'm gonna say news flash. Everyone has candida. This is not something you get. It's something that it's inside of us.
Yeah.
That's what protects usually our system. But
Mhm.
problems start when candida levels are unbalanced. We talked about it when we talk about probiotics and prebiotics. We all have some probiotics and prebiotics in the system. Problem starts when there is unbalance of that proteins, basically, of those probiotics. That's why it's very important to take them. Our body doesn't know how to produce them anymore. Now,
Right.
Jason, let
Because of
me
the
ask.
processed foods. Because of
Mhm.
overly processed foods.
True. And
Yeah.
not just processed food, it's also medication.
Right.
Advil, Tylenol, any type of,
And antibiotics are the
an
major cause,
antibiotic.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kill that probiotics. Up to
Mhm.
5, 6 years ago, doctors thought we're crazy. They're like, probiotics is a bullshit. Today, the biggest treatment for cancer happened with prebiotics and probiotics because this
Right.
is the defenders. Those are the natural antibiotic of our body. And it's amazing how people are finding slowly, like in food, more probiotics, more digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes are one of the top important things we need in our body in order to break that food. Now, over the years, we experience, especially in America, I always laugh about it. We experience a lot of diets. This diet, the cookie diet, the Miami diet, the paleo diet, Atkins
Hmm.
diet, fat diet. There is no one diet for all. It's amazing. It's insane
Right.
industry that you need to pay to lose weight, and from the other hand, you have it in your face every moment. Fat food, processed food, colored food, poison food, and you gain
Hmm.
that weight. So we
Right.
spend half of our lifetime losing the weight with diet and another half on good restaurant.
That's true. That's true. All
Yeah,
bad
so
restaurants.
You know, one thing that struck me, and I'm sure Eric too, about Jason's book, because it's almost similar in a way where you both talk about like having a positive outlook,
Yeah.
right?
you have to.
On your illness. Yeah. And it's kind of like what you were saying, Kareen's very big about the mind, body, and soul being connected, you know, with our gut. And that kind of struck me too, with you, Jason, about, you know, that connection about, you know, your gut and how you feel and having that positivity. And that was another big, you know, I think it's slowly becoming, and Corrine, you said this, it's slowly becoming the in thing, and then it will be the norm, about people listening to the holistic stuff, the
Yeah.
the naturopathic stuff. And I find it fascinating that we met Jason, and then obviously knowing you and having that same outlook. And Jason, talk a minute real tell us about your book, because it's kind of in the same format, as it's easy to understand, right? And you talk about the differences and even do like a little wrap up at the end of each chapter.
That's
Yeah, and I
right.
want to ask
Yeah.
you,
So each chapter.
I want to ask you one small question.
Yeah.
How did, because, you know, many audience will listen to. So what is the signs you want to look for, or at least listen? You know, I'm all about listen to your body, like
Right.
being in tune with your body. Sometimes you're just tired because you're tired, but if it's
Yes.
something that repeatedly happen after the same exercise or the same food, or what should people, you know, listen to or look for in order to know if they have, maybe if they even start to suffer from chronic fatigue before it's going to get worse? You know, what is your intake to that leads you to write the book? Or what's your what's your
Yeah,
suggestion?
it's a difficult question because everybody's different.
Right.
And it's quite insidious disease in that it's very difficult to know you have it until it's way too late. Because obviously, you know, most people are tired after a day's work. Most people are tired after exercising, but it's the type of tiredness that you can only feel it yourself. It's very hard to describe the feeling to others. But people, the difference between being tired through mental exertion or physical exertion and chronic fatigue syndrome are very different experiences. But over time, you could say that one bleeds into the other. So it's a very slow transition between feeling tired as you would normally and feeling chronically tired. So it's very difficult to say what's the feeling like, or would somebody instantly know that they've suddenly got chronic fatigue syndrome? It doesn't work that way.
You had it swollen in any places? You had hard time to eat? I mean, maybe even some small, because the reason I'm asking, because I want to say that chronic fatigue is not that different from depression sometimes.
No, well, they're linked, and this is part of the problem. One of the problems early on in this disease was that doctors would prescribe you with antidepressants. Every time I go to see a different doctor, I'd say, these are the symptoms. They'd say, here's a bottle of Zoloft or Lexapro, and we'll see you in 3 months. And that was part of the frustration.
Yeah.
That was a part of the frustration that led to me writing this book, because, you know, I got fed up of it. I had prescriptions for 10 different types of antidepressants, which I wasn't taking.
And you weren't depressed.
No, of course. I mean, that's not the cause of the depression, right? It's the chronic fatigue causes the depression.
Right.
So that's got to be addressed. Addressing the depression directly is helpful, because if you are depressed because of chronic fatigue, and of course many people are, because why not? You have to address that. And there's a whole chapter in the book about how to beat depression. And it's an important part. It's an important part of recovery. Yeah,
that's a great thing to know. Yeah.
But just going back to your original question, the way most people realize they got chronic fatigue syndrome is probably post a very nasty virus. The way, looking back, it was fairly obvious that I never really recovered from a mononucleosis or similar to Epstein-Barr virus, that kind of retrovirus that you get maybe earlier on in life, and then you kind of forget about it, but then you look back and realize, well, do you know what? I wasn't quite the same after that virus. And then that virus may be reactivated over time as an autoimmune problem. And then you realize, and everything clicks into place, and you think, oh yeah, it was obviously that virus instigated it. And of course, that has now become prevalent with COVID, and COVID's turning into long COVID. And we've only known about long COVID for an incredibly short period of time. But we do know that it exists, and we know that, well, at least I believe that everything that I've written in the book can help people with long COVID. And I just want to tie that back in with you, Corinne, in that, do you mind if I read out a page out of my book?
Of course.
Because it ties in with what you do, and it ties in with COVID.
That's
exactly
okay? Why you're in.
That's cool.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to say about it.
Learn more and more from experience, because, and this is why I ask you if there is a connection between depression, because nowadays everybody seems to suffer from, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm taking antidepressant, or the other thing is, oh, I had COVID and I never recovered. And this is something we hear about a lot. And let you read the chapter of your book, like one piece of your chapter that connected to everything. Maybe
it links all this together. So I think it's a good page.
It's amazing.
All right, here we go. All right, so it's common knowledge that 70% of our immune system resides in the gut. That's why taking on dietary changes in this chapter is so important. The chapter is called Anti-Inflammatory Diet. You are no doubt aware that there are both good and bad bacteria fighting for space in the gut, and what we eat and touch determines which one wins the daily battle. You may not win every battle, but it's imperative that you win the war. In COVID patients, increasing evidence appears to show an interaction between the gut microbiome and COVID, which can affect the longevity and severity of the virus. A recent study has shown that profiling the gut microbiome via a poop test can predict the future severity of COVID. Furthermore, a disrupted gut microbiome may contribute to the cytokine storm, which causes a pro-inflammatory environment throughout the body. So balancing your microbiome through eating a healthier diet, coupled with an increase in consumption of fermented foods and probiotic supplements, may reduce the severity and longevity of COVID. The gut microbiome is also affected by environmental factors such as the bacteria we physically touch and inadvertently ingest on a daily basis. The increase in the use of hand sanitizers and disinfectants has reduced the variety of bacteria in the microbiome of the general population. This massive reduction in national and international travel throughout the pandemic and beyond has further reduced our exposure to important types of bacteria that help feed our microbiome. These factors, combined with stay-at-home workers, increased sedentary living, increased antibiotic use, and overall poorer diet, has led to a sea change shift in the health balance microbiome in both the general population and, more importantly, those suffering from long COVID and other chronic conditions. With regard to chronic fatigue syndrome, a study has shown an unusual profile of the microbiome with high levels of glutamic acid and argininosuccinic acid with decrease in alpha tocopherol found in the feces of ME patients. Glutamic acid is an amino acid that is used to form proteins that help nerve cells in the brain to send and receive signals to other cells. High levels of glutamate, glutamic acid turns to glutamate in the body, disrupts energy metabolism, causes inflammation, and can increase anxiety. Ingesting glutamate, usually in the form of monosodium glutamate, common in processed food and Chinese foods, also leads to frequent headaches, increased blood pressure, obesity, and increased sensitivity to pain, a possible cause of fibromyalgia. An increase in the argininosuccinic acid can increase ammonia in the blood, hyperammonia, which leads to, you guessed it, fatigue. A decrease in the alpha tocopherol, which low vitamin E levels, leads to malabsorbed syndromes and cystic fibrosis. Without going into greater detail on the issues, eating more probiotic foods such as kimchi, sauerkraut, pickled cabbage, natural yogurt, kombucha, coupled with probiotic supplements is vital to maintain a healthy biome and immune system and vital weapon in the war against fatigue. So that really ties in, I think, with what you do, Corinne, in terms of, can you just reflect on what I just said in terms of what you do and how that can help people?
Oh, yeah. First questions to you. Have you ever done colonics or any?
We were just speaking about it before you joined, actually. I have not done a colonic, and I was talking about coffee enemas. I know you're waving your finger at me, but I've tried a million things. And I haven't tried an enema.
Exactly why? Because coffee enema is amazing, but it's amazing only after you've done few colonics.
Right.
And the reason is the coffee acts like, I always like to talk as, not medical terms. So I'm a mechanic in my term. I'm a plumber. I'm a human plumber, and I'm doing some mechanic work. You know how when we need to charge battery in our car, we put plugs and then it's recharge the battery. That's exactly what the coffee does. It's like charge the liver, and the liver is contracting and releasing the caffeine. That's what it does. Now, it makes sense, and I use it a lot on cancer patients because they're intaking a lot of medication, obviously. So it's a good thing to release that poison out of the system. That's why the coffee enema is really good. But in terms of you never had colonics, that means that your system is still dirty, clogged, call it whatever you want. And we put more poison in the system, so it doesn't make sense, or like in sense of order. So the way I like to work is clean your system, and then maybe on the 4th or 5th to do coffee enema along with colonics. What I do the coffee enema with your colonics. Now, answering your questions, colonic is one of the best thing and choice for you to do. I highly recommend. I recommend you to come visit me one weekend. I'm not that far. People come to me from everywhere, I promise. And the thing is that it's gonna clean a lot of old stuff from, from the sides of your colon. Of course, it's gonna take some of good bacteria, but I'm sure you're gonna intake more bacteria. The way it helps to chronic fatigue, it's amazing. And I'm saying that amazing because in the past year, so many people with chronic fatigue or with long-term COVID or depression, people that received the 3rd booster, their colonics is so different of what the outcomes. It's amazing. It's so much inflammation, so much toxins are coming out. And you can actually see the minute it starts to move out of their body, because I always look at the iris and I look at the skin. It's amazing how the body reacts. It's like kind of like a breathing part to it, and inflammation goes down. Remember Cheyenne, my client, she have how you call that disease? Not Lyme. She have like a joint disease. It's also chronic fatigue. RA.
Oh, rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes. And every time she comes, I mean, of course, it has to follow with some diet, obviously. And every time she comes, it's amazing to see how everything goes down to place and how she can move her joint. I mean, scientifically, I don't know what happened in the body when I'm taking shit, toxins, and waste out. But I can only think about it about like logically when I remove those layers of toxins, what actually those toxins are going to our brain and causing those depression, obviously. And when we have all those toxins in our blood, logically it will be more hard to, you know, move joints. When there is inflammation, it's like in the center of our body, we can't breathe right. It's actually, I mean, every single system slows down, and it makes sense that if our systems are slowing down, we suffer from those things. So for you, Jason, I would highly recommend to do any form of enema or colonics, and I promise you the change. Really, I mean, I usually don't promise if I can't, you know, prove it right. But in that case, I can promise
For,
you.
for people who've never done one, could you explain the process and what it feels like?
Yeah. First of all, I need to send you my book because my book describe exactly what we're talking. So basically, it's a 45 minutes procedure. I do reserve an hour. I hook you to a hose. It's all disposable. It's very small one. So yeah, I'm not.
I was thinking in my head a garden hose, which I assume it's smaller than that. Okay, just want to make sure.
Darling, I'm gonna say it and I'm gonna say it again. You're still gonna be a virgin there. It's very, very small. It's really, it's, you know, it's funny because people really are afraid of what it is, and when they do it, they're like, that's it, that was it, this is what I was. It's really small. What you will feel is pressure on your rectum, like the urge to go. That's really what you're gonna feel. It's not painful, it's uncomfortable, yes, but definitely not painful. Of course, you're fully covered and facing up. So no, I don't see your butt. I'm sorry about it. Yeah, only for 1 minute, but that's not my thing. And then I run water inside the system. So the minute I run the water will go all the way around the cone. So it does full circle. And then it starts to fill you up. So during the filling, you're gonna feel like you really need to go to the restroom. Now you're gonna get to the point that you feel like, okay, now I really need to go. Well, that's my expertise because the minute you feel it, I'll see it happen right before. And then I'm gonna release the water, and then you can actually see everything that comes out. Now, everything happened in closed system. So there is no touch, no odor. Everything that you imagine, it's not.
Right. Yeah, because I can imagine very nasty things there.
And yes, I drink my coffee during colonic. So here you go. And you see, okay, the best part of this whole thing is what you see is what you get. There is really no hiding fees there. I see everything, the good, the bad, and whatever you want to hide. It's everything follows with massage because I do massage your cone. So I will press and I will talk to you, and you're a big part of the session, obviously. And when it comes out, you feel like a relief because it comes, it's a detox. It's like a rehab happened. It's like all the vessels open up. So you're going to feel like goosebumps. You're going to feel like lightheaded. You feel like something is leaving you. And when that happens, it's insane feeling. I can't really describe it till you feel it. It's really hard. The most I get is like lightheaded. I feel good. I can start to see better. I mean, the vision. We have so many toxins. Now, to the audience, you can look at your iris. If you see it getting a little bit cloudy or yellowish, that means there is a lot of toxins in the body. Another amazing tool is look at your skin when you wake up. If it's tired, that means there is a lot of toxins inside. So Botox is not going to help. It's going to help to have it like surprise, but it's not going to take the toxins out. And the feeling, going like walking on light, cloud kind of. It's really hard to explain the feeling afterwards because it's, it's different. But the feeling during is that you need to go, but it's true to what you feel, because when you feel you need to go, you release. So you actually do go with someone else sitting next to you, like me. That's what I tell everybody. Yeah, you are going just with another person next to you, At the end of the session, I release you and you go to the restroom to release the rest of the water. In an average session, I push almost, I want to say 2 gallons of water, obviously 2 to 3, not in one time. No,
Wow.
it doesn't happen in one time. It happened in like small. So you get to feel your belly like going up, up, up. And then when there is the release, it's like you punch a hole in a balloon. The feeling is amazing. I honestly, Jason, inviting you, first of all, to read my book because it's really good. Second, it's to actually do one of those treatments. And yes, I would love to document that treatment because it's amazing for chronic fatigue. And the reason I'm saying it's amazing, because even now that you feel good, and this is for everybody out there, sometimes we think that we solved the problem, we solved the case, now we feel good for this entire year, which is amazing. But I want people to understand that even when you feel good, continue to do what you did. Meaning, continue with the good food, continue with the good exercise, continue with the enema, continue with colonics, continue with the hyperbaric chamber, which is amazing for chronic fatigue. I know about it for a long time, but I just did it to my husband and myself as well. It's one of the best experience ever. And I don't know if you had it done, Jason. Have you heard about Ibu, or they call it today when they ozone therapy, when they take your blood, running it through ozone and put it back to you? This is another amazing tool for chronic fatigue. And today is more affordable. When I started with it, it was $1,500 a session. Today it's 200. Like this is different. So today there is a lot more treatment that are affordable to do, and they're more open. You don't need to be a celeb to do it.
Right.
I know. And they help tremendously. And it's amazing that one session of hyperbaric chamber can change your life in so many ways. And I'm working with many doctors that do it. And no one heard about, no one. It's just starting right now. Same thing with ozone therapy. It's just start. I use ozone on my colonics. At the end of the colonics, I wrap it up with ozone inside. And it kills bacteria. It lets you breathe better. And once in a while to just replace your blood, take your blood, refresh it with ozone and put it back. This is like, if you think about it, it's like, wow, it's like a breathing process of your body. We're doing so many things that hurt our body in everyday life, like washing our hair with shampoo, going outside to, fires that there is out. There is, I have to go back because me, I always going back and forth thing. pollution, and the antibacterial. You know, during COVID, everybody was, I think I'm the only one that never used disinfectant thing. When I grew up, 1975, we used to drink water from fountain with corrosia. I mean, thinking about it, we used to drink with dogs the same way. We used to walk barefoot. We used to eat mud. We used to touch. Well, we washed our hand before we eat, but we were exposed to my point is that we were exposed to so many viruses and bacteria. And touch wood, because I mentioned I have 4 kids. I never wiped them while they were outside. I always let them play in the mud, making a lot of mess, and then I would wash them. And that's a very important thing.
Yeah, we live in a sanitized world now. You're right. Yeah.
Antibiotic. And that's why people like us that don't use all those disinfecting things. First of all, it's a lot of chemical, but beside that fact, we keep our immune system stronger because we're exposed to so many things our body can defend. I mean, I had COVID. I was asymptomatic for COVID. I didn't know. I knew I had because I went to do the antibody test. That's how I knew.
Antibody test. Yeah. Me too. That's how I found out.
And the fact is that I don't use any medication in my household. And I have 4 kids and they were interacting with other kids and they had COVID. We didn't. I know I'm saying we were all good. It was, I know a lot of people suffer from COVID and die, and it's very serious thing, but it's also very serious thing to think about what the poison we put in our body beforehand. So many people, I can say that at least 80% of the population, even the young population here in the States, takes antidepressant, take drugs, using a lot of drugs and a lot of painkillers. And those are a good enough, reason to be exposed to things that can actually kill you because your immune system is very low. It's like a very common thing. It's like when your immune system is strong, there is less chances for you to go bad. When your immune system is strong, you will heal. You can get sick, but you will heal faster. And maybe you're not going to have all the after, like syndrome things. And we tend to forget those things because, we don't think about those. Because to take Advil and Tylenol and some painkiller because I have a headache, it's very common in those days. For me, it's poison.
Right.
So there is other ways to deal with fatigues. How many people with fatigue are taking like painkillers now, like no tomorrow, and antidepressant and weed. So I'm not saying I'm not against anybody and I'm not judging anyone, but doing all that and expect your system to work on the high, it's a little bit crazy to me. So it's like to put your car on speed. In one hand, at the end of the day, it will shut down. That's what I'm explaining people. You have to be aware on your body. It's not that you're going to die if you're not going to do colonics, or you're not going to die from chronic fatigue. You're going to suffer. But if you're not going to do something about it, that car you're driving in will stop, because one of those systems will stop to function. And when that happens, it's like a snowball. Everything else stops, and there is no one thing. So it's not just going to be a chronic fatigue. It's going to be headache, and it's going to lead to depression, and it's going to lead to you stay too long in bed, so that will affect your muscle. And if it, so it's one thing leads to the other. And I'm saying, like, we have to restart our body with good food, good mind, because positively, this is, I think, number one before everything else. Because if you're not thinking positive in your head, it's not gonna be a good way. I mean,
right, you need to think positive. Agreed. Can I ask you one last question? Can I ask you a last question before we go? Have you ever had experience with or other people doing the fecal microbiota transplant, where you get somebody else's poop inserted?
Yeah, I have.
Have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, I have 3 clients that did it. And
how did it go?
Yeah, no. And it's well, it helped one of them, it helped them because she did it, I'll tell, she did it because of cancer. And it actually helped her tremendously. It really, really helped her. The other one didn't see a lot of results, but I want to, let me just think what was the reason, because she had okay. The other one suffered from a lot of hypercandida and SIBO. And that was the reason she did. It helped her for a little bit, but then we put her on a lot of probiotics, and we kept cleaning, and she was also on a very strict diet. So it does help. I'm not saying it's not 100%, but it did bring from a 0 to 100 to almost 80, and for me that's 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So I know about that method. It's a great one. I mean, it is a great one for your chronic.
Can I just can I give you a fun fact?
Of course.
Apparently there are banks where you can donate your own poop, and if you do it regularly enough, you can earn up to $13,000 a year donating your own poop.
Wait.
On the downside, it's a bit of a shitty job.
Listen,
you had me going for a second.
I have a shitty job, which I love.
Jason, not only have you got to ask questions to Karine, and we got a lot of good stuff talking about. I think you're a really good part of the show. Your joke.
Yeah.
That was a good joke. That was really good.
You had me going for a second.
I know.
Listen, I'll give you even more shitty joke. An average person can contain up to 15 pounds of shit. So literally, we're all full of shit.
That's funny.
Okay? Not just talking shit, but really inside. So yes, if you take the average weight of a person, at least 2 to 5%, it's shit that we can get rid of. Now, you can be thin, and that's what people have in mind. I'm sorry about my words, but yeah, that's how people fucked up in their head when they think like, oh, she's thin, she's very healthy. Oh, I'm going to Whole Foods, I'm very healthy. No, let me break that myth. You can be fat or heavyweight. I don't like to call fat, but you can be heavyweight or big and be very healthy. And you can have the fat from other things like hormone problems, not just bad diet. Of course, when you have bad diet, it leads to gain a lot of weight, unnecessary weight. But being thin, it doesn't mean you're healthy. Being thin, it doesn't mean you eliminate. And I'm working with a lot of models, actors, And the best way to see it, like I said, it's the skin. If you're gonna see models before they put makeup, skin look disaster. And they're very tired, very fatigued, very toxic. And to eliminate toxins and old stuff, it's very important. Now, when you're thin, that waste become plaque. That's how it's clogging the walls of the cone. So you can't see it visual outside, but when it comes from inside, it's insane because it's look like rubber band. And that's why we have to think about what's the smell of the poop is, because it's very important. If it's very strong, that means it's indication for a problem.
What is it? I mean, very, very fascinating. And I have a feeling, and I'd like to go out on a limb. And Jason, I mean, if you would like to come back, we'd love to have you, because I think this is a fascinating conversation in that you know what to ask. You know all these good things because, you know, I mean, I don't know about Eric, but I'm an observating. Is observating a word? I'm in observation mode, right? And we can only touch the surface, but once you get into the things that you've researched and the questions that you're asking, I mean, this is all fascinating stuff. So I would like to go on a limb and ask you if you'd like to come back on the show. We would absolutely love to have you because you have great insight and questions to ask.
Of course, yeah. Anytime, it'd be a pleasure. I can
With
help.
all my pleasure. But Jason, I really like, this is a personal invitation. You're not that far from me. You can come over the weekend. I do work Sundays as well, or during the week.
Where are you? Where are you based exactly?
In Tarzana, Los Angeles. I'm not that far from you.
Okay.
But if I am far from you, you can go to San Diego, which is closer to you. There is facilities to do it. And this is one of the things that I highly recommend you. I know I'm short in time, but I would love to do a live with you and talk about things, because like people needs it.
Yeah, and I think that would be good. And you don't necessarily have to, well, I don't know if, I mean, doing a live, just like talking and you asking questions and stuff, but, and if you would really like to go out on a limb, Jason, if you do go to Pure Center, by all means, we would definitely like to do a live, because no joke, we were talking about like me coming, you know, when I come to Los Angeles, is to do a colonic and possibly do a live. So yeah. So it'll be amazing. As for Instagram Live, we absolutely should set that up and talk about all this stuff over Instagram Live. So we'll get that set up for sure. We will get that set up. Jason, do you have any other quick questions before we wrap up? Or would you like to say anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, if people are listening to this and they suffer from chronic fatigue or any kind of chronic illness, and as we're discussing the gut, then you know, go see Corinne, get a colonic, because I'm going to try that for one. So why not? Let's give it a go, right? I'm open to everything and anything, so I think that's the next thing that I'm going to try and do. So let's do that. Let's stop eating junk food. Let's stop eating processed food. Try and eat some probiotic type foods, such as kimchi, sauerkraut, if you can digest that, pickled cabbage, which you can mix up with the salad. Natural yogurts are nice to have. And I drink a bottle of kombucha every day. I've drank kombucha every day now for about 7 years, maybe 8 years. And that's just helped my gut, because when I was younger, I used to go to the bathroom about once every 3-4 days. And now I go once or twice every day. And I think the kombucha's been one of the catalysts for doing that, as well as the cleaning up my diet as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is all we will set up the next phase with you, Jason, for sure. And Corrine, thank you so much. Thank
you. I love you. I have to run.
Yes, always. You know what? That's the thing. Corrine, you are the hustler, and
That's right.
that I love about you. And you care about a lot of people, and you have a lot of clients that depend on you, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too. Eric, you want to take us out?
Yeah, well, everybody, we just want to thank Jason and Karine for giving us of their time. Everybody's links will be in the description if you're listening in on Anchor, and have a great week, everybody.